Hello guys, welcome back to Path of Nostalgia. In this installment we're looking at creepy crawlies. Interesting one. So, where do we begin with this one? Quite an interesting one actually to go from. Bit of an unknown one, but it's worth talking about. So, this show is created by Cosgrove Hall, this did, back in the late 80s. It's been between 1987 and 1989, supposedly, actually. Obviously, done by, of course, again, Cosgrove Hall. Features the voice talent of Paul Nichols as the narrator, and follows the adventures of, you guessed it, creepy crawlies, centering around a sundial in a garden somewhere. We have an interesting selection of characters like Mr. Harrison, Mr. Harrison, the snail. You've got Ancient the caterpillar, Lambeth the beetle. There's quite a few interesting characters. I forgot some most of the characters' names. Just them ones just spring up to mind. Really, they do. But it's an interesting series, very wonderfully animated. The puppets look fantastic, they do. Wonderfully interesting. Also, we've got the music by Keith Halpern and Malcolm Rowe. They sort of do that, and of course, Paul Nichols does the song. It's a very charming series. It is, interestingly. Really, it's just like a real little gem in terms of Cosgrove Hall's archive, really, or in their sort of filmography, really. And it's interesting, really, because it's on, it's quite unknown in places because they only had like it's very limited. It was very limited release, of course, only spread like 2 videos back in the late 80s. I think 87, 88 was the only time they ever did this. I think they only ever released 2. I think 2 VHSs that contained 5 episodes. Even though supposedly there's about 52 in total, but they never really, released proper. Would be interesting if they did, but chances are it won't be likely, really. You never know, really, with some film prints that are still around. Don't know if the show's still around or not, that's the thing. The only source you could probably think of is just those VHSs, or anything that's maybe taped off, like someone's recorded off, maybe Children's ITV or something, of course. It is interesting, though, because it was only brief, it was. So, 87, 89, at this point, Danger Mouse was sort of on a bit of a hiatus at that point, really, because he only did 2 stories of Danger Mouse. The Wind in the Willows was doing the 4th series they were at that point as well, 87. When you go into 1988, Count Duckler appeared. Mainly Count Duckler and Creepy Crawlies at that point, and afterwards in 89, again Count Duckler as well continued on. Tale of Two Toads came out in 89 as well, during the festive period, and also the last grasp of what Creepy Crawlies was. It's very nice, actually, though. In terms of animation style, pretty good, really lovely. It's directed by Francis Vose, who directed a couple of episodes in series 4 for Wind in the Willows. Went on to become sort of like a more well-known director in for the Almost a Toad or series 5, whatever you call it, wherever you like to put it, really. If it's series 5 or Almost a Toad, and went on Truckers afterwards, and it's done a few interesting bits and pieces over the time, really. Again, pretty interesting. It's written by a guy called Peter Reeves, who I'm not really too sure about, really. I don't know what else he's done, really, unless he's worked for Cosgrove as well, doing bits and pieces, script writing or anything like that. I don't really know. Comment down below if you're familiar with what he's done before or any other bits and pieces about the show. Please tell me. But overall, it's a lovely little gem, because I remember it was actually from Jeffrey Kitch, actually, who introduced it. It was actually from, what do you call it? His obscure observations when he was doing Filthy Rich and Cat Flap, and he said, on this, I think it was so January 1987 was when Creepy Crawlies first started. It's like a sporting program as well, and the sitcom as well. That sort of came at the same time, in the same month, same year. interestingly. So Jeffrey Kitchell, Nori Benadram, if I pronounce that name correctly, his proper name, actual name. Thank you for recommending it. Actually, he's like, even though it's just a bit of trivia, he's like, that is actually interesting, really, because I think he showed like a VHS box art or something, really. I thought, what interesting look to them, very interesting characters. So I ended up having a look, actually, just really enjoying it. Yeah, it's good. It has that sort of gentle pace to it as well. Like you always get some interesting stories, like what do you call it? The big red yellow, something like that. It's when Lambeth is in a plant pot. So he thinks like some people have like found a great one or something. You know, it's like, you know, found a god or something on the ground or something. Interesting. And he sort of gets stuck at the end. He's like, you know, can you please help me, please, friends? That sort of thing. I'm trying to think of anything else really that they sort of are familiar with. I think there's a snow one as well. Also, there were little scarves as well in the books, which is pretty interesting actually. But yeah, again, I think that's the only, like the red voice. The red voice, that's what it's called. That's the only sort of episode I can really probably tell really. You know, really what I can remember, what I've seen actually of that show. Yeah, nothing else to really say really. It's just like, again, wandering, pandering stuff really. But it's interesting. I've also included him in the tile sequence as well, if you're familiar. If you've seen that, you know, it's like when they like these insects are like putting a puzzle together. If you see it in like in the obscure filters or whatever, and that weird, what do you call it, tile sequence type thing. It's on there. Yeah, but it's interesting really. You know, it's quite fascinating actually. So this is like another interesting gem that's talking about actually. You know, again, like maybe other ones I've done in the past really. So there we go. Creepy Crawlies from Crawley Hall between 1987 and 1989, if I'm correct about that. There's only 2 VHS releases, and that's all we've got really. But thank you guys for watching. See what your thoughts are. Have you used it? How did you used to watch it on broadcast back in the late 80s? Let me know. Comment down below. Thank you guys. See you for the next video.